Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome to the last part of the series of uh, important fundamentals of fasting in the month of Ramadan. Important fundamentals of fasting in the month of Ramadan. So, like I highlighted in the first video, I said that this part we're talking about anti-calf. So we're talking about anti-calf, and we also there's a little addition at the end of the discussion on anti-calf. So what does itikaf mean? Itikaf simply means, to stay in the masjid for a while. For a Muslim that is, you know, smart enough to differentiate between his left and right, and is also sane. So for him to stay in the masjid, in the mosque for a while with the intention of seeking the pleasure of Allah, with the intention of seeking the reward of Allah. So if he does this, and it's regarded as an itikaf. So that's the meaning of itikaf basically. So, and we'll take some things under itikaf that will make us understand better. So firstly, we'll talk about the basic ruling of itikaf. The basic ruling of itikaf. What's the basic ruling of itikaf? That is the ruling before it is altered. The ruling at first before it is altered. So the basic ruling is that it is sunnah. It is sunnah. It is encouraged. If you do it, you get a reward. If you don't do it, you are not a sinner. So the basic ruling is that it is encouraged. So that's the meaning of that is the basic ruling for itikaf. So if a person, pledges to perform itikaf, so itikaf becomes compulsory upon him. Itikaf becomes compulsory instead of sunnah. It becomes compulsory upon him. So, but the basic ruling is that it is sunnah. It is encouraged. So, and what time do you observe this itikaf? So, it is preferably on the last 10 days of Ramadan. The last 10 days of Ramadan. So, it is good to have itikaf on the last 10 days of Ramadan. And with regards to the time as well, is there a least number of hours a person has to stay in the masjid before it is regarded as itikaf? So there are a lot of statements regarding this, a lot of statements of the scholars regarding this, but the one we'll be going with um, as far as this presentation is concerned is that there is no limited time, there is no least number of hours a person has to stay in the mosque before it is regarded as intikaf. But the scholars as well encourage that intikaf, we don't make intikaf less than um, we don't make itikaf less than a day or a night. That is, we don't make it less than 12 hours because it is not reported from any companion that he performed itikaf less than less than 12 hours. So we don't make our itikaf less than 12 hours. So this is the explanation. This is the statement of the scholar. So we don't make itikaf less than 12 hours. So, like I said, there's no least number of hours, but it is preferable that we remember, itikaf, even if a person, just stays in the mosque for some hours and, with the intention, with the good intention of, of seeking the pleasure of Allah. So it is regarded as itikaf, but it is better to have it on the last 10 days of Ramadan. That is when a day here means, the day and the night. So, conditions for correctness. What are the conditions for correctness? As we know, as I've said earlier, so itikaf is done to seek the pleasure of Allah. So it is an act of worship, and every act of worship has its own condition for correctness. It has its own condition of correctness, and this will be talking about it in the coming slides. So, and we also talk about the nullifiers in the coming slides, and lastly, we'll talk about the etiquette also in the coming slides. So, the conditions for correctness. So, every act of worship has its own condition for correctness, and the first of them always is Islam. So, without Islam, your act of worship is not considered correct. So, we have said this, many times during our basic faith presentation series. So Islam is the first condition, and then secondly is smartness and sanity. Smartness and sanity. A person has to be smart, that is able to distinguish between left and right. Like I said, while defining itikaf, and also he's saying he's not somebody that has run mad or is intoxicated. So if he is sane and smart, then he has completed this second condition. The third condition is the intention. A person has to do it with the intention of seeking the pleasure of Allah, with the intention of seeking a reward from Allah, with the intention of getting closer to Allah. So that is the third, and also must be observed in a mosque for congregation. That must be observed in a mosque for congregation. not just anywhere, not just any place. So it must be observed in a mosque for congregation, a mosque where the congregation is usually observed, not just anywhere. Because Professor Salam said that the surface of the earth has been made as a mosque for him. So generally, the basic rule is that a person can pray anywhere. So although there are little exceptions to the places a person can pray, but what we are after is that it must be in the intikaf we are talking about has to be in a mosque for congregation. So and lastly is purification from major non-physical impurities. Purification from from major non-physical impurities. Also during our basic fiqh presentation series, we have talked about impurities. So and the impurities are divided into two. We have the physical and the non-physical. The non-physical are divided into two as well. We have the bigger one and the smaller one, that is the major and the minor one. So and what we mean by the non-physical impurities are, what I mean by non-physical impurity. I will just give us an illustration to explain. For instance, a person performs ablution, and his ablution becomes nullified. He performs the ablution correctly, it becomes nullified, and he goes back to perform another ablution. So we say he has become pure. So when he goes back to perform another ablution, he's not washing away any physical impurity from his body. So what he is washing away is called hadas, that is non-physical impurity. So you can't see him washing away any physical impurity because he just finished performing ablution. And even that first ablution is not for physical impurity, but I'm just using the second ablution just to make us understand better. So the second ablution, his body is clean already. Of course, he just finished. Even if he just finished, taking his bath or something, or he just finished performing ablution. So yeah, his body is clean already. So even if you want to argue that he's washing away physical impurity, he has performed the first ablution, and his body has been clean from, even if you know a person thinks that the impurity is physical. So the second ablution, what is he washing away? Is washing away the hadas, the non-physical impurity. That is, he's changing his state from impure to pure. He's changing his state. So it's just like a change of state, not necessarily not necessarily cleaning anything, just changing his state from impure to pure. So he becomes a pure person after the ablution, and that is the minor one. So the major one is the one that requires ghusl, like when a person has sexual intercourse, or a female that completed a menstrual cycle, and the rest. So that is a non-physical impurity. So a person must be pure from the major non-physical impurity. So the minor one is not a condition, because a person's ablution will always become nullified. So what are nullifiers for itikaf? What are nullifiers for itikaf? Uh, Nullifiers for itikaf. The first is deliberate needless exit from the mosque. Deliberate needless exit. It has to be deliberate. The exit is deliberate, and also it is needless. You don't need it. It's not important. So deliberately needless exit from the mosque, even if it is for a little while, it nullifies the itikaf. So but if a person, for instance, there is no food in the mosque, and the person has to go out to get food, to break his fast and the likes. So it is an important, exit from the mosque, and this does not nullify the intikaf. But a needless exit nullifies the intikaf, because it is against the purpose of intikaf. Intikaf is to stay in the mosque, as a means of getting closer to Allah. So, but deliberate needless exit, it's it's uh, it's against the purpose of the itikaf. So secondly, sexual intercourse nullifies itikaf, and thirdly is insanity and intoxication. So if a person is insane, if a person becomes insane during the course of itikaf, or becomes intoxicated with alcohol or whatever, so his itikaf becomes nullified as well. And also monthly blood discharge and postnatal bleeding from the female, it also nullifies itikaf. So and this belief also nullifies itikaf, and nullifies every act of worship a person is doing at that particular time. So this we have said it many times during the basic fiqh sessions. So there's something when we're talking about the conditions for correctness, we didn't mention that a person has to be a male. So which means masculinity is not a condition for correctness. So if a female performs itikaf is also considered correct if she does it the correct way. So it's also considered correct. So, etiquette. What are the etiquettes for intikaf? What are the etiquettes for intikaf? The etiquette for intikaf are just similar to the etiquette for Ramadan generally, but they are just emphasized, more emphasized during this period. So, etiquettes for intikaf, we have observing much voluntary prayers like you have in the Ramadan as well. You have to perform much voluntary prayers during Ramadan generally. So, and most especially during the last 10 days, during the month of Ramadan, the last 10 days, last 10 nights during Ramadan. Uh, Observing much voluntary prayers during the itikaf is very much encouraged, and also much supplications and remembrance of Allah. Much supplications, make a lot of supplications, a lot of remembrance of Allah, a lot of dua, a lot of askar, during this itikaf, and also constant repentance. The person has to repent from his sins, because this period is a period of forgiveness. So a person has to make sure that he attains the forgiveness. So this is the end of uh this is the end of Intikaf. This is the end of our discussion on Intikaf. So we'll be talking something else. Like I said, payment of expiation. Payment of expiation is something that we need to know, and I think it's more appropriate to be taken after the nullifiers of fasting, so that we know how to pay for expiation for somebody that requires it. So it's not everybody that requires. It's not everybody that breaks his or fast that requires it. So, but they are just we mention what causes it. So payment of expiation, we talk about the causes and we talk about the expiation itself. So what causes it is sexual intercourse. So there are differences of opinions regarding it. We have people that said that anything that a person does to break his fast deliberately, whether sexual intercourse or not, requires expiation. If a person does it deliberately without any need for it, without being compelled to do it, without having a reason to do it, without having an excuse, permissible excuse, like we listed you know, in the previous videos. So if a person has no excuse and deliberately just breaks his fast, so he requires to pay for expiation. So, but this is an opinion. But as far as this presentation is concerned, we are limiting ourselves to just a single opinion, and that is that sexual intercourse is the only one that requires expiation. Every other one does not require expiation. If a person breaks his fast deliberately, he has committed a major sin, but does not require expiation. So expiation, what is this expiation? How does he perform this expiation? The first is that he frees a slave. This is what he will do if he's able to find a slave. He will free a slave. So, but it is more likely that he will not be able to do this. So, he will move to the next one. So, if he's not able to do the first, he will move to the next one. So, but if he's able to do the first, then there's no need moving to the next one. So, if he's not unable to find a slave, then he moves to the next one, which is to fast 2 consecutive months, consecutive lunar months. He has to fast 2 consecutive lunar months. It doesn't have to be 60 days. It could be 60 days. It could be less than that. So, he just has to fast 2 consecutive lunar months. And then lastly, if he's unable to do this, whether due to old age or due to a sickness that you don't expect him to get cured, so he will feed 60 people. He will feed 60 people. So he will feed 60 poor people. And we have explained the type of people a person will feed, not just the family and people that ordinarily are supposed to provide for them. So he will feed 60 poor people that are not people that he already caters for. So, and that's about payment of expiation. This is where we stop on this video. Pray to Allah to accept our fasting, our prayer, our supplications during this month of Ramadan. See you in some other video. Thank you very much.